Welcome into another episode of Pigskin Dynasty. I am your host this week, riding solo, Scott Euler, the Fantasy Leprechaun. Matt Phillips, he's up in Minnesota on vacation this weekend. I believe he's going to a wedding. So he will be unable to join us. Minnesota, don't you know? And anyways, we're going to take a step back this week, and we're at the quarter point in the season, and we're going to just look at things that have happened in the first 4 weeks of the season, as in terms of dynasty. So we're gonna do some buy sells for dynasty. I'll do a rookie re-ranking. It's not really a redraft because I'm by myself, so I'll just do like a rookie re-rankings, as well as some strategies to pay attention to at this point in the season, depending on how your team's progressing, how your results are in those situations there. So to get it off, I just wanted to go over a few injuries here that have come up on the news docket this week 5 of the season. So Dalvin Cook, he has been ruled out this week, so Latavius Murray is the guy there. This, just foreshadowing, creates a really good buy opportunity, I think, for Dalvin Cook in a dynasty perspective. He missed 2 weeks ago, last week. I mean, he may have missed. It's actually worse because you put him in your lineup and he only got you 2 points in a PPR league. This week he'll be now sitting out. So Latavius Murray, get him in your lineups this week definitely against the Eagles. I think there'll be tons of scoring. I do think the Vikings are, they're due for some progression. A term that is used a lot in this industry, and it really irritates me, is positive regression. No, guys, that's called progression. Regression, fall back. Progression, move forward. So they're going to progress to the average, the mean of this Minnesota Vikings offense, I believe, this week against Philadelphia, even though it's a good defense. Giovanni Bernard, he has been ruled out with an MCL issue. Also, in that backfield, Joe Mixon is coming back from he had a knee cleanup procedure. I love Mixon. I'm playing Mixon. They said they're going to limit his touches a little bit, but rookie Mark Walton would be the guy getting some of the work behind him. So I wouldn't have any issues playing Mixon, coming off this injury, even though they're talking about reducing his work a little bit. I'm still playing Mixon. I still think he's in for 15 to 20 touches, and he has a talent. I mean, he's talent every inch of his body, so he could, perform with just getting that little bit of carries there. And surprise, surprise, Cincinnati's offense has been one of the top 10, top 5 in the league this year. So, get anybody you got in that offense and you start playing them, because, 4 weeks in, they've shown that they can sustain it. This is who they are. Once you're 4 weeks into a season, you kind of show what you are. It's no longer an accident if they go off for 30, 40 points. Leonard Fournette, he's out with that same hamstring injury. That seems to be a common theme within his career here. He missed some time as a rookie. He's missing time now as a veteran. So it's concerning because this goes back to his college career too. But I still really am a big fan of Leonard Fournette. I think he's a great talent. I think he's in a situation where the team wants to just feed him the rock and let him be the offense, and then kind of work their way around him. Foreshadowing again here, Leonard Fournette, I think, is another good buy opportunity here. Randall Cobb, he's out, and Geronimo Allison also dealing with concussion problems, and Devontae Adams has a calf issue. So the top 3 receivers there in Green Bay are all battling issues, and with Cobb, he's been ruled out. So that is a door opening here for the rookies. They drafted 3 of them: Jamon Moore in the 4th, Marquez Valdes-Scantling in the 5th, and then they got the 2017. If we go back to 2017, he was a projected top 5 pick in dynasty aspects. Equanimeous St. Brown, he falls to the 6th round, but he's there in Green Bay too. I look for Marquez Valdes-Scantling, though, out of this receiving core to step up. He's been singled out by Mike McCarthy, the head coach. He's had the most opportunity thus far in the season, and quite frankly, to me, I believe he looked the best in the preseason. So he was the, I believe, least popular, most unsexy name there among those 3 wide receivers there in Green Bay. So he was available in many of my leagues. And if you have a spot, if you have a roster spot in a deep league, it's worth the speculative ad. Go ahead, pick him up. If he's out there, go make sure that he's rostered, because that Green Bay offense, as we know, that's a juggernaut. So if you just get a piece of that offense, I mean, any given week, that a guy could go off. It doesn't matter who, and they got a track record of doing that. So, make sure that he's at least rostered. Get him out there. Going in, I got 2 more injuries just to briefly talk about here. I got Ted Ginn. He's out for Monday Night Football. That is just swings the door wide open for, I believe, Traquan Smith to step in. He's the guy, I think, getting more of the looks. Cameron Meredith is there too, so maybe they do go the veteran route. But come on, this is Dynasty. Rookies are the sexy. They're the new hotness. That's what we're looking for. And this is a big opportunity here for Traquan Smith on Monday Night Football against the Washington Redskins defense. Anybody playing with, if they can get on the field with Drew Brees, they put up numbers. I mean, that's really just the way it is. So I've been a fan of Traquan Smith. I think he's one of them underrated guys coming out of the draft. Kind of overlooked coming out of UCF. He's prototypical size. He's got good speed. He looks like he's a vertical threat, a good jump ball passer or catcher. So he looks like he could do some things there in the New Orleans offense. And he's fairly cheap right now. You could probably go out, offer a 4th, maybe a 3rd round pick for him and acquire him. And there's tons of opportunity here for him. So I think it could be a good player to go put a chip on right now, especially in the New Orleans offense. And Monday Night Football, everybody's watching. And then the last thing I want to talk about, and it kind of just popped up on my news docket here, is Lamar Miller. The Houston Texans are reportedly pessimistic about Lamar Miller playing. And this is a night game, Sunday Night Football against the Cowboys. They're pessimistic about him playing with a chest injury, which is, it's very strange. It's a weird report, because I don't believe I've ever heard of a report coming out where a team is pessimistic about a player playing. So if that's a night game, and you don't have, you got 2 options. You got Alfred Blue. You could roll the back up there, or you have to look for, do you have a Saint running back, which I assume you would play either Mark Ingram or Alvin Kamara over Lamar Miller anyways. Or you can look to the Redskins backfield, and I imagine Adrian Peterson, Chris Thompson are owned. Cowboys, Zeke is owned. So, your options are very limited. Really, it kind of just is Alfred Blue or maybe Rod Smith, and you pray for maybe Zeke to miss some time in this game. So, with this report coming out about Lamar Miller and just reviewing people's options here, you're probably better off, going in a different direction here, playing a guy that plays earlier on Sunday, 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock game, and just avoid that disastrous situation, or potentially disastrous situation for your roster lineup. And, and maybe Lamar Miller plays, but it's a hard thing to do, with the night game there to kind of project it. So it kind of just depends on who you have on your roster and those types of things, but I would look elsewhere. I would try to play, if you don't have an Adrian Peterson, Chris Thompson type guy, I would, go ahead and look to play, your next guy up in the 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock games, and just reduce the risk there. Now, so that was all the injuries this week that, the main ones. We know Evan Ingram's out. We know Greg Olson's out. So those are the types of things that I kind of skipped over. But, just wanted to roll this in, and I want to do a little bit of dynasty buy or sells here through the quarter point of this season. So going in, I got probably twice as many buys as I have sells. But real quick, just to touch on, before I dive into this, there's couple strategies to this that I just want to touch on a little bit, and it just kind of explain what I'm looking for when I'm doing kind of the buy sells type things. One of my favorite things to do is I love, and I really feel like I take advantage of this more than anything else in my leagues, is I love to buy underperforming rookies or second year players. Because you know how it goes. You get your rookie draft comes up, you get a first round pick, you get spend a good capital to acquire a player, and they come out in their rookie year, they don't do anything for you, but you say, you know what, I'm gonna hold on to him through his second year, and let's see what he does in his second year. And through 4 weeks, if he hasn't done anything, people, they're very impatient. And really, Dynasty, you have to be patient in Dynasty. You really do. So if you can be more patient than the rest of your league, I feel like you could really hit on a lot of things here, and you really just optimize, your rookie, your picks, your roster spots, and those types of things. So always just look back. Look at who you were in love with last year who underperformed. Mike Williams was a big buy for me in the offseason. He didn't do anything because he was injured. And injuries, don't worry about injuries. People get injured all the time. If they're injured and don't do anything, that's better than them being healthy and not doing anything, i.e. Laquan Treadwell. So I'm always looking towards the injured players because we don't know if they're good or not. We don't know because we haven't seen it. They haven't been on the field. Now, if through 3 years it's a chronic problem, then that's another situation. But after 1 year, you're not going to know. And I would even say the second year, injuries can be fluky sometimes. So just a strategy there. I'm always looking to buy underperforming rookies, second-year players that are underperforming, not living up to their draft, what their draft cost. So those are the players I look to invest in at a cheaper price. First-round pick, a former first-round pick, I'll throw a second, see if we can get him that way. Or a first-round pick who hits and then he's injured, like Joe Mixon right now. I'm offering firsts. I'd even go as far as to say I'd offer 2 firsts to get Joe Mixon. I love the talent. I love the situation. I love the offense. He is a huge buy. I would love to get him. And then another thing you need to look at is you need to understand not only the direction your team's headed, but you need to understand the direction every team in the league is headed. You need to know, okay, who are the contenders? Who has the mindset of contenders? What teams are contending? Who thinks they can contend? But and look at their records too. Make sure the records are confirming that. And you also need to look at teams that could be ready to throw in the season. Let's go ahead and rebuild. We just had a team do that in our league, and you have to be out in front on that. Because if you're not in front and you're late to the party, well, the good pieces are picked and traded away. So send off. Look for the teams that have poor records. Look for the teams that rosters, they don't have the sexy roster. They don't have the what you believe is a contending offer. Look to those teams and offer them young assets and future draft capital to acquire some of their veterans. Mostly they're non-core pieces, but sometimes people can get a little ambitious and trade away a core piece for the right offer. We just had Odell Beckham get traded for 4 first-round picks. We had Le'Veon Bell get traded too in a league for, gosh, I wish I can remember, Calvin Ridley and Mark Ingram. So really, and then you got to be out in front of that, because if you're late to that party, you're late to the show, you're late to the bidding, so to speak. You're gonna miss out. You're gonna miss out on the guys, and you just got to be aware not only of your team and which direction your team is headed, but you need to be aware of all the other teams in your league and how the owner of that league tends to, view things, and just maybe sometimes you got to sell them on a rebuild. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes you just go to a guy, you say, look, your team ain't gonna contend this year. You recognize that, and I think most people that are level-headed will. And then you go, maybe the best strategy here for you is rebuild. Here, take a couple of my first-round picks. Give me your stud wide receiver there, and rebuild it. In 2 years, your team's going to be sick. So sometimes you kind of got to sell the strategy of it too, and that's not a bad thing. So just be comfortable with it. Recognize the other teams in the league. Recognize the way your team's headed, and and make some offers, guys. Don't be afraid to make offers. Be aggressive. You need to be aggressive. If you're too passive, if you're, you got to be aggressive if you're going to win. You got to take chances on some things, and the more chances you take, the more likely you are to hit, and you can really build a stud team that way. But going into some buy sells here. Now this isn't. I don't really have a particular order for this. This is just as I'm thinking about it, the players that I'm offering for. But the first player I want to talk about is Kenyon Drake. Now, Drake has had a very, very poor start to his season. Multiple single-digit games. He's not getting the carries. He's not getting the workload. I do believe this offense is probably better than what the general consensus is. Kind of like buying the Browns back in the day. So I do think the offense is a little bit better than what most people believe it is. But through the first 4 weeks, he had 9 points, 18 points the first two, and then he comes back with 3 points and 2.6 points. So he only had 5 and 3 carries in the previous 2 games. So Frank Gore, he's really, getting a lot of work in this offense. And they didn't run very many plays in weeks 3 and 4. So I do think he could be in for a big game at Cincinnati. Cincinnati's a high flying offense. I think this could be a really high scoring game this week, actually. So Kenyon Drake has been a big buy for me. I think a second, maybe a second and third or 2 seconds could get it done. I don't think it'll cost you first to get Kenyon Drake. However, I'm not opposed completely to offering a first for Kenyon Drake. Maybe you could offer a first for Drake in a second. That's the type of thing that I'd be looking to do to acquire Kenyon Drake. I do believe in the talent. Pass catching guys. I love my pass catching guys. He's big enough. He's not the biggest guy. He's not going to be them thumper. He's not going to be a Le'Veon Bell. He's not. But he could be a Lamar Miller plus. Where he's consistent. We've seen him play last year, so. Just given the direction Kenyon Drake's season's going, he's a buy for me. The next guy I want to talk about, I touched on it a little bit, was Dalvin Cook. He's coming off injury, and that's the thing I really enjoy doing is acquiring players coming off injury. He had a couple decent games last year towards ACL, so he's coming back off an ACL into this year. He hadn't really popped yet. He hadn't popped yet for this season. Then he's dealing with the hamstring problem that he's got here. I'm just pulling up his statistics for this season. So he missed week 3, 13 and 12 the first 2 weeks, and then he 2-pointed on Thursday Night Football. Primetime games, players dud on primetime games. That's a huge buy window for me because everybody's watching primetime games. So he's only played in 5, 6, 7 games in his career. He spent most of the time injured already, so he's a player I'm looking to acquire. I'd offer. He got traded in our league for 2 firsts. I think that's a little rich. I think about a first and a second is his window there. But if if you're selling Dalvin Cook, you try to get 2 firsts. If you can't get 2 firsts, and you're selling, you're really committed to selling first, second. That's about what I would want to acquire Dalvin Cook for, as a first and a second. Maybe I could do 2 firsts for Cook and a second coming back. It'd be a type of a trade that I'd like to make. But Cook he's a buy for me. I think the talent's there. Obviously he's in a good situation. So Dalvin Cook, go get you some Dalvin Cook here. The next guy, Courtland Sutton. He's a rookie. A lot of people were pretty high on him. We had a guy in our league pretty high on him. I didn't think he'd get the opportunity because of Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders there, so I thought there could be a secondary buy opportunity. That's why I ranked him lower than I typically probably would have, considering his talent. But I'm giving a 19 first for Courtland Sutton. I've seen enough. This guy's going to be a beast. He has to get Demaryius Thomas out, maybe injured, or as I'm kind of projecting here as a Broncos fan, I do think there is potential for this season for Courtland Sutton to overtake Demaryius Thomas. And I think that could happen before week 8 that soon. So go get Courtland Sutton. Offer the Sutton owner a 19 first. Maybe you got to throw in Laquan Treadwell, Josh Doxson, just an interesting young prospect there to sweeten the deal just a little bit. But Cortland Sutton, the guy's going to be good. He's going to be like really good. So go get him now before he overtakes Demaryius Thomas and actually hits. Another buy for me, a little bit more expensive here, is Gronk. I'll give 2 firsts to get Gronk if I'm a contender. Gronk's he's had a subpar first 4 weeks of the season. I do think with Edelman now coming back, I mean, he had 16 points in a 1.5 tight end premium league on Thursday night. So the Gronk owner he's used to getting 25, 30 points from this guy in a PPR league. So I think the Gronk owner could be getting a little impatient here. I go offer him 2 firsts for Gronk if you're a contender and see if that don't get the deal done. And, I look for Gronk to rebound the rest of the season. The next buy is Eric Ebron. He just 15 targets, blew up on Thursday Night Football, 35 points in that scoring format I told you about. And people they're still not buying it. They're still like, well, Jack Doyle's out. Guys, Eric Ebron has been an elite producer to this point in his career. And let's just look at his age real fast. I know he's still a really young guy. He's been in the league for like 4 years already. And this is his 5th year. He's been in the league for 4 years. This is his 5th year. He's still 25, just 25 years old. And with 18 points, 13 points, 10, 18, 37. This is an every week startup guy. He's top 5 at the position right now in scoring, and that's not even including his 37-point game on Thursday night. Eric Ebron in this offense, he's going to get looks. He's going to get work. Even when Jack Doyle gets back, he's still going to be there. And people are really low. I got a low ball offer, I believe, for Eric Ebron for a 3rd-round pick. Guys, that's not going to get it done. Offer 2 seconds. If you can get Ebron for 2 seconds, I think in this offense with Frank Reich calling the plays and Andrew Luck loves his tight ends, there's going to be work there. He's going to be a productive player at the tight end position. So Eric Ebron, it's one of them unsexy buys, I believe, just because they don't like Ebron. They think he can't catch. They think of Detroit Lions days. So I think the tides are changing here for Eric Ebron, and he could be an every week, solid player for you, borderline stud. He's tight end 1. He'll finish tight end 1 this season. Excuse me, I gotta take a sip here. All right, sorry guys, I know that's bad for radio. Going into the next guy, and he's looked excellent, like excellent. Every time he's touched the ball, I believe. And that's Royce Freeman. The guy's averaging 8 yards a carry. It's insane. But the Broncos have not used him. He's only getting like 8 touches a game. He's hardly on the field. Devontae Booker's on the field as much as he is. And then Phillip Lindsay's there, and they keep trying to use Phillip Lindsay. And I'm sorry, but foreshadowing again, Phillip Lindsay he's not going to be a long-term guy here in this offense. He's too small. He's a nice runner. He's a nice, he looks good. He does look good, but he's a small guy. And Royce Freeman, he's big enough to wear down these defenses. And he just looks, he looks good. He looks powerful. He looks shifty. He's got speed. He can take it to the end zone here. I don't know what the Broncos are doing to keep rotating their backfield. It's frustrating as a Broncos fan and also a Royce Freeman owner, because you're watching the guy and you're going, God, he's good. And he's not getting the workload to be the fantasy producer to this point in his career. Now, I do think that'll change. It has to change if you just watch the film and you see what he does. It has to change. He has to get more carries. They've come out and said they want to get him more carries, but really, he needs to be using a bell cow type of role, and I'm not sure the Broncos are going to get there this season. So I do think there is a huge buy opportunity for Royce Freeman moving forward. This coaching staff is on a very, very short leash, and if they don't get the season turned around, they're 2-2. If they don't get the season turned around, they're not going to be around very long. So, new coaching staff comes in, and they could be a type of guy that wants to run a bell call type guy. So I think Royce Freeman is a massive buy for this season. Another guy I want to talk about as a buy, I got like 5 more, man. I'm telling you, when I go buy and I go shopping, I'm like a woman going into Target. Like, you go in for just one little thing and you come out with a shopping cart full of everything. Like, that's just the way I am in Dynasty. I just can't help myself. So any stock I see coming down, I want to go ahead and jump in on it before it can come back up. So Amari Cooper, elite producer for his first 3 years of his career. He's kind of been, like a roller coaster this year. 2 points, 21 points, 3 points, 27 points. I mean, it's up and down. It's hasn't been consistent there for Amari Cooper. Last year he had a really awful year. People are really down on him. So if you can get him for a first, I mean, I'd give 2 firsts to get Amari Cooper on my team, and I don't think it's going to cost you that much. I think 1 first might do it for a very impatient owner. I think if you offer a first and second, that could get it done, or a first and a player. Like, Amari Cooper, he's been an elite producer to this, age 24 season in his career. He's within elite company here. Go get Amari Cooper. He could be an every week play for you, the rest of the season. And if you just look at his 2 games he was down, it's against the Rams, Aqib Talib, and Marcus Peters. If you just watch the game, it seemed like the offensive staff, they just wanted to work the ball in the middle of the field with Jared Cook. They felt like they had better matchup options there against the linebackers. So, you could tell the story there. And then week 3 at the Miami Dolphins, Xavier Howard might be the most underrated cornerback in this league, and he shut Amari Cooper down. He's going to shut a lot of people down this year. So I didn't have a problem with it. I kind of expected it. But 27 points against the Browns and 21 against the Broncos. I mean, even they have really good secondaries. Denzel Ward's come out, and he looks like he's a solid player. That might not be as bad of a pick by the Browns as we initially thought here at Pigskin Dynasty. So, 27 points against the Browns, that's pretty solid. 8 for 128 touchdown on 12 targets. I'll take that. And then against the Broncos, we all know Broncos no-fly zone. They got a good secondary. He went 10 for 16 on 10 targets. So, he looks good. He looks like he's figured out some of these drop problems that he had been having. And just, briefly here, looking at the schedule going forward, it looks like a lot of pretty weak secondaries here. They get the Chargers this week. Not a great secondary with I can't remember the guy's name right now off the top of my head, but I know their starting cornerback is out with, I believe, an Achilles injury. The Seahawks, they just lost Earl Thomas. Their secondary is going to be a mess. The Colts secondary is a mess. The 49ers don't have a great defense. Back to the Chargers. Then the Cardinals, they have a pretty good, solid defense. Ravens solid. And then his playoff schedule here, Steelers, Bengals, Broncos. Yeah, that's a great playoff schedule. So, buying me some Amari Cooper, I'd offer 2 firsts. I'd offer initially a first and a second, but if it goes up to 2 firsts or a first and a solid player, I'm paying it. Go ahead and get him. Another guy, this is kind of an injury thing here. Evan Ingram, he's had a subpar start to his season this year. I kind of expected that with all the other weapons. I mean, they got Sterling Shepard, Odell Beckham, Saquon Barkley, and Eli Manning is limiting this offense so much, it's sickening. But Evan Ingram, he injured his knee. He's out for several weeks. If there's a buy opportunity here, if you can get him for a first, I will. I think tons of potential there with Evan Ingram. Moving into Rashad Penny, I think he could be acquired at this point probably for a second before the season's over with. And I'm not going to offer anything more than a second at this point. I do like the player. The situation ain't the best. The offensive line isn't the best. But Mike Davis just can't. I mean, Chris Carson goes down, right? Chris Carson was the guy. He was a starter. He goes down, so everybody's like, yes, finally we're going to see first-round draft pick Rashad Penny. Nope, that's wrong. Ain't happening. They're playing Mike Davis. Who? Mike Davis? South Carolina running back, 5th-round pick, went to the 49ers, got cut. Now he's in Seattle. That Mike Davis. He came out and had a 30-point game in PPR scoring. So, Rashad Penny, I don't know what the Seahawks are doing with this backfield, but anyways, wait it out. If you can get him for a second at any point in the season, just every week keep sending that offer until it goes through. He's the guy I'm interested in acquiring. I do think he's a talented player. Another guy, and Matt will really appreciate me saying this, but I'm buying Ronald Jones at this point. I don't think his stock has been beaten down, or a second round NFL draft pick stock has been beaten down so bad as Ronald Jones has. He was a healthy inactive for the first 3 weeks of the season, and then he got 10 touches in week 4 against the Bears. I mean, it's the Bears defense, so they're good. He didn't do nothing against them, and if you might be able to get him for a third. Like, it has been that bad for Ronald Jones. He was a borderline first-round pick. Matt was all in on him and took him 4th overall. So, at this point, I mean, I know I'm not getting him from Matt. And if you have Ronald Jones, you don't sell. But if you can get him from an impatient owner, offer a 3rd-round pick, that might get it done. And if that don't, and he comes back with something else, I mean, maybe I give a 2nd for Ronald Jones and a 3rd, just because of the draft pedigree there. Even though I don't like the player, the draft pedigree is there, and the depth chart is open. It's open enough. So he's a player I'd be somewhat interested in. Another buy, and this might be a West Coast thing, but I don't believe Mike Williams has gotten the attention that he deserves. So if you can get Mike Williams for a 1st, I mean, he was a big buy for me in the offseason. So it really should have acquired him in the offseason for a 2nd-round pick. That would have got it done. But now, I mean, I'd give a 19 first to get Mike Williams if the owner doesn't believe in him. But that still might not get it done. I mean, it just kind of depends on the league. But if you can get him for a 19 first, I'm trying to get him here. And then the last player I want to talk about, I just don't think everybody is coming around on him. Like, I know, and it's Will Fuller, guys. It's Will Fuller. He's producing. He's putting up points. He has this rapport with Deshaun Watson. I mean, he scores a touchdown every other catch. It's stupid, but a guy playing like that should be like a top 15 receiver, and I think he's barely top 30 in the general consensus of the values here within the community. So Will Fuller, I mean, even though he's producing, but he just has this little injury bug that he keeps dealing with. But Will Fuller, I think he's a buy. I don't think he's going away, especially with with Deshaun Watson. I think that Fuller Watson connection is here to stay, and if you can get him for a 1st, maybe a 1st and a 2nd, I'm all in on doing that. All right, guys, taking another sip here, and then we'll go ahead and get into our sells. See, usually I'm able to take a drink here in between Matt talking. Matt likes to talk here. So I could take, several swigs and keep my voice nice and fresh. But, man, this week being my own, not doing so well. All right, going into my sells. I foreshadowed this earlier. Phillip Lindsay, massive sell for me. Dude, if you could flip him for a 2nd, get out on that stock now. He's not going to be the bell cow. He's just not big enough to hold that workload. He's a nice September player. I do think as the season goes along, he'll wear down. When we get to the colder weather, he's just not going to be the same player. So if you can get a 2nd for Phillip Lindsay right now, go sell it, get that 2nd-round pick, and let's just turn the back end of that roster into something else. It opens up the roster spot too. Another underrated aspect of trading for draft picks is you're opening a roster spot. That's another poker chip, another shot on another player to hit and flip and, just turn it into a more solid player. The next guy, I think I'm selling, and he's had a pretty solid start to his season, is I think I'm selling Jordan Howard. I think for the right owner, to the right negotiation process, you could get 2 firsts for Jordan Howard, and I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna get on Jordan Howard. I don't believe in him as a long-term player. He's gonna have a nice 2018 season. This offense is doing enough. He's getting schemed enough. He's getting enough carries. He's actually starting to do some work in the passing game. So I do think Jordan Howard is going to have a nice 2018 season and probably finish Borderline top 12, probably top 15 in total PPR scoring. So he'll be nice, but I don't think he is a long-term guy, a long-term stud, a core asset, cornerstone of a dynasty team, of a franchise here. So for that reason, I'm moving on from Jordan Howard if I can pull two first, and I think if you find the right guy, you could get that done. Next guy I'm selling, and it kind of pains me to say this a little bit as a Broncos fan, but Demaryius Thomas, he doesn't look like his former self. He seems like he's just a big possession receiver now, a move the chains guy. That's not good for fantasy. So I'm moving on from Demaryius Thomas. I'm offering Demaryius in a second to get a first. If that doesn't get it done, I'm going to see if I can get a second, maybe a second and a third. But Demaryius Thomas, guys, if you don't get out on him now, it's going to be too late very quickly. So if I can go all in on a sell, I'm all in on Demaryius Thomas selling. Get him off your rosters now before it's too late. Moving on. Now, I'm not selling this player. So, it's kind of a buy and a sell because he's missed his last couple of weeks. So you think buy, right? No, I am selling Devonta Freeman. I think this offense may turn to Tevin Coleman going forward. I don't think he's the player he once was. He runs really hard, and he's a small guy. And I think his body's kind of taken the toll of his running style here. So Devonta Freeman, I'm not selling him right now. I want to wait a week or two and hope that he can have a big game where he scores 25, 30 points, and then I'll look to sell. And maybe you can get multiple firsts, or maybe you trade a first or Freeman in a second to get two firsts. That's my goal here, is to try to get two firsts out of him. So Freeman in a second, or Freeman in 2 seconds to get two firsts. That's the type of thing that I'm gonna try to do. Is let's figure out a way to turn Freeman into two firsts. And I think you can get that done after he has a big week. And in that offense, he's likely to have a pretty big week here. Next guy, and I kind of think the writing is on the wall for the Detroit Lions wide receivers, but the next guy I'm selling is Marvin Jones. Kenny Galladay, he's going to be a nice player. He's going to be, I want to say stud, but he's going to be a really nice player. A deep play threat, end zone, red zone target here. It's kind of going to overtake what Marvin Jones does best, because Kenny Galladay does a little bit better, plus he offers more to the offense. So Marvin Jones, I'm looking to sell. If you can get a second and a player, or something along those lines, kind of got to be a little bit of a package, because I don't think he's worth a first on his own. Obviously try it, but I don't really feel like he's worth a first on his own. So maybe you got to get a little creative here and offer Marvin Jones for a second plus. Maybe you can pull 2 seconds, or maybe it's second and a player that you really like that's underperforming, like Ronald Jones, or just something like that. You got to be a little bit creative, I think, to get the correct value for Marvin Jones here. But I just kind of projecting and seeing the writing on the wall. I think Kenny Galladay he's in to overtake Marvin Jones in this offense. Couple more guys here, and I got a big one to unveil to you at the end of this one. But the next guy here I'm selling is Allen Robinson. He's just this offense, and I kind of thought this going into the season. This offense just it just doesn't fit what A-Rob is good at, because the Bears offense, Matt Nagy, the Chiefs, it's a lot of motions, it's a lot of crosses, it's a lot of smaller, shiftier receivers, and not a whole lot of vertical passes to just a jump ball guy. And that's really what Allen Robinson is. He's a vertical jump ball guy, and it's just a lot of short area stuff, and he just doesn't have the quickness to do that. He's a go ball or see ball, get ball type receiver in the Randy Moss-esque. Nowhere near as good as Randy Moss was at it, but that's the type of receiver he is. And this offense and Mitch Trubisky's throwing style just doesn't seem to fit that playing style of Allen Robinson. And for that reason, I'm selling. I think you can get a first plus. Maybe not quite to the level of 2 firsts, but I think you can get a first and second plus maybe a nice player on top of it. So Allen Robinson, he's a guy I'm looking to move off of. The next guy that I'm selling here is Chris Godwin. And hear me out. I like Chris Godwin a lot. I really do. But in this offense, I don't know if it's going to get much better for him in this offense. I think Jameis favors the tight ends more than Ryan Fitzpatrick did. That's why Chris Godwin had the first 3 weeks of the season where he played really nice games and had really good scoring output. So I think there is a potential that somebody could be in on him as a young player. Many people liked him coming out of Penn State, so I think he could be flipped for a first, maybe a 2020 first instead of a 2019 first, or if people are down on the 2019 class like many are, you can get the 19 first easier. But if you could trade Godwin and get a first, that's a move I'm looking to make. If you can get a first for it, if it's only a second, just hold on, because that's likely what you invested to get Chris Godwin. So just hold on and wait for him to produce a little bit more, because he's going to be a nice player. But if you can get a first for him, I'd get out. 3 more guys here in the sells. And this one, I'm going to say this in terms, the next 3 guys are in different terms here. I'm only selling these 3 players if you're in a I'm only selling these 3 players as if you're in a rebuilding mode. So Emmanuel Sanders, the first guy here, he's going to be a really nice player this season. So if you're rebuilding, sell Emmanuel Sanders. I think he's a top 20 wide receiver this season. He's getting the targets. Case Keenum knows how to throw to him. They got that connection there. So Emmanuel Sanders, if you're a rebuilding team, you can get a second for Emmanuel Sanders. I'd go ahead and move on. Sell him to a contender for a second. Hopefully the contender has a projected early second. But anyways, I'd sell him for a second here. Carlos Hyde, I think Nick Chubb has shown he has more juice than Carlos Hyde does. I mean, Carlos Hyde's a nice player, and he's done well. But I think Nick Chubb has shown already that he has a little bit more juice than Hyde. So, if you're a rebuilding team, and you can get a second for Hyde, and it just happened in one of our leagues, I'd go ahead and move on from Hyde, sell him to a contender, get that second round pick, and something more of a long-term type of asset. And then the last one may come as a surprise to many, but I've sold him in multiple leagues already, and that's James Conner. I'm selling James Conner. I sold him before week 1. I thought, first of all, if Le'Veon Bell comes back and he's going to be back in week 7, that hurts his value for this season. So I sold him my redraft league on that precipice before week 1 for Doug Baldwin. Baldwin's been hurt, so it didn't really work out for me early in the season, but I do believe it's going to work out for me as the season progresses. But James Conner, I'm selling. I don't think... I'm not sure that he is a long-term bell cow type asset. He has the size. He looks good, but he's not the elite Le'Veon Bell. He's not Le'Veon Bell. So he's just a nice player. But I believe he's been, because I think of the cancer and some of the things, of the story of James Conner. I do think his price has been inflated a little bit, with the Pittsburgh offense and all that, and Le'Veon Bell's holdout. So I do think his price has been inflated. You could have pulled multiple firsts for James Conner after week 1. So if you could still get multiple firsts for James Conner, I'm selling and moving on, and just give me a shot. Give me another shot on a different guy with higher pedigree, probably a little bit better of an athlete than James Conner, and just kick the can down for a few more years, and a younger, likely more talented player. So that's the buy sells that I have, through the quarter point of the season. But before I go, I wanted to do just one more thing here, and this is going to be a little bit shorter of a podcast than the previous episodes that we've done. By design, and I'm on my own, so there's only one person having something to say instead of both me and Matt here. But anyways, I just real fast, quarter point way of the season, I wanted to go through and give you a 2018 rookie like re-ranking. It's not really a redraft because I'm by myself, like I said. So I just want to re-rank, the top 12 rookies the way I see it through the quarter point in the season. But anyways, just to kick that off, in this re-ranking, as I'm going to call it here, Saquon Barkley, he's the number one. He's been a stud through the passing game. He hasn't really done a lot or very much rushing the ball. He's had a few moments, but he hasn't been that true, number 2 pick. Let's run the ball. I think part of that is the offensive line. Part of that is Eli Manning. They're not throwing the ball down the field very well, so that's tightening the box a little bit. So Barkley, 101. He's been a really nice player, but he hasn't done it the way that people probably expected. Number 2 player on my board here, and really there's 3 guys I'm considering, but I'm going to stick with the way I had it in the offseason, and I'm going to leave Nick Chubb at number 2. I've seen enough from Nick Chubb to know or to think that he's going to be a really great player. He's going to work. I do think he's going to be tied to a really nice offense with Baker Mayfield there. Baker seems like he's going to hit. He's not going to be a bust. He might not be the best quarterback in this draft class. We'll see, but he's not going to be a bust. He's going to be a nice player. But Nick Chubb, he's my number 2. He had a big game against Oakland, and I can't wait for 2019 when he's the guy. But number 3, and like I said, these two. The next 2 are they're iffy. They could go either way. But number 3 here, I'm gonna go Kerryon Johnson. I've seen enough, and number 4, I'm just gonna go ahead because I can literally use this talk about one of these players, and it sounds like I'm talking about both of them. And number 4 is Royce Freeman. But anyways, Kerryon Johnson and Royce Freeman, they both look like the best running backs in their backfield, but they're just not getting all the carries. The Lions keep wanting to work in LeGarrette Blount and make that work. Plus, they got Theo Riddick in the passing game. And then the Broncos, they keep showcasing Philip Lindsay more than everything. But then on passing down situations, Devontae Booker comes in. So it's a headache. It's a muddy mess right now. But I do believe going forward, talent's going to win out. It has to win out. It always does. And Kerryon, I think before the season's up, will be the bell cow in Detroit. And Royce, maybe he's not quite before the end of the season, but definitely for the 2019 season, Royce is going to be the bell cow there. But those 4 guys, they look like they hit. And then, so from there, I'll probably have a tier break, and then there's 4 more guys in the next tier. And really, if you ask me on a different day, I could probably have them in a different order. But the next 4 guys are Calvin Ridley. He's had 2 huge monster games in weeks 3 and 4. Julio and him seem like they're going to work together. That's gonna be nice. And I was pretty low on Ridley going into the season, so for me to say that he's had really nice games and he's going to be a nice player. He's not going to bust. He's going to be a good player here. So Ridley, I'll have it at 5. Darius Geis at 6. He was my 102, 103 between him and Chubb. The injury hurts him a little bit. I still like him a lot long term, and he should be a buy. I don't know why I didn't have him in there, but definitely if you can get Geis some point during the season. If the owner has Geis, they invested a first round pick in him, right? So offering him a 2019 first for that player, it doesn't do him any good because that 19 first ain't going to help him this year anyways. So you kind of got to offer a player, maybe one of the sells. Maybe you could offer James Conner and get Geis plus a first, or something along them lines, or Jordan Howard for Geis, Devonta Freeman for Geis plus. I mean, that's probably more of a likely trade scenario to get Geis there. But I'm still a big fan. I'm a believer in Geis. I've seen enough in the preseason. He looked like he was going to work. He was going to be a good player there. But I do drop him just a little bit just because the other guys, I've seen them perform more, and I liked what I've seen from them a lot. And they are producing this year, so there's, more opportunity for them to increase their value. Geis, he's not going to increase. If anything, he'll decrease in value just because he's not on the field. And then the next guy at number 7, and really, I mean, he could be up there with Carrion and Royce too, is Sony Michel. The Patriots are using him out of necessity because Rex Burkhead he got injured and placed on the IR. Jeremy Hill got injured and placed on IR. On Thursday night, they were down to just 2 backs, James White and Sony Michel. But I will say Mike Gillislee just got released by the Saints, so they can bring Mark Ingram in. So I do think the Patriots likely will bring Mike Gillislee in and just fill the role that he had last year, and maybe that'll hurt Sony just a little bit. But he's been a bell cow for them the last couple of weeks, and maybe now that I think about it, I probably should have him up there in the top 4. But really, these first 7, 8 guys, they all look like they've hit or are going to hit. But the next guy here, Courtland Sutton, like I said, the only reason he's this low right now is because he hasn't gotten the opportunity because of Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders. But the writing is on the wall, kind of in the Kenny Golladay, Marvin Jones ilk. But Sutton is going to overtake Demaryius Thomas. It will happen sooner rather than later. And before the season is over, Sutton is going to be the wide receiver opposite of Emmanuel Sanders. They probably kick Demaryius Thomas into the slot and try to get him playing maybe like Larry Fitzgerald did. Now, later in his career where he transitioned from the outside to the slot. But Demaryius Thomas, he does not look like the same player. But going in, I got 3 more guys here. At number 9, Rashad Penny. The draft pedigree is there. I think he's a talented player. First round pick. But he is not getting the carries. The situation has been good for him. So it's hurt him a little bit. And like I said, I had him as a buy. If you can acquire him, go get him. Number 9, I got DJ Moore. He's I liked him a lot coming out, but he hasn't performed very much. So he's a player that if you could try to go get. But I still like the talent. I think he's flashed a little bit. He just hasn't gotten the opportunity here, which is why he's not any higher. That was number 10. So number 11, I got Christian Kirk. Kind of same situation as DJ Moore. Hasn't gotten a lot of opportunities here, but I still think he's a nice player. I think Josh Rosen coming in was going to help this offense all around. But Christian Kirk, he should be able to build a rapport with Josh Rosen going forward, and I do think that he'll kind of develop as the season progresses, and by the end of the year, we'll start seeing him flash quite a bit. And then the last player I have here, and he could be higher, he could definitely be ahead of the last 2 guys, maybe the last 3 guys, but it's Antonio Callaway. He caught that long pass in the end zone there to take the Saints game to overtime. He's been on the field, he's been getting targets and usage, and he's looked like a solid player. The only reason he's not any higher is because we still have the off-the-field marijuana concerns with him. So for those reasons, I kept him at 12 instead of putting him a little bit higher. But as far as the talent and on-the-field perspective, he's hit. He's a good player. He's going to be a solid player as long as he can stay healthy. I honestly think because of Antonio Callaway, the Browns felt like, Josh Gordon's expendable. Let's get him out of here. We replace him with Antonio Callaway. He's the guy. He's going to be good. So why deal with the headache of Josh Gordon? So I do believe that had a big part of them moving on from Josh Gordon there. But anyways, that wraps it up. That wraps up the podcast here this week. Hopefully, you can go out and pull off some of these trades, whether it's buying or selling, and just evaluate the way your team is headed. Evaluate your roster, your wins, loss. A thing that I like to look at is total points scored. I think that's more indicative of how your team is doing compared to the league, as opposed to to your record. Like for example, I'm 3-1 in our league, but I've scored 802 points. I scored 193 points in a loss. It happens. It happens. There's one guy who's undefeated 4-0. He's only scored 682 points. So I'm 120 points over him on the season, but I have a worse record. And that's just one example. There's more examples of that. Like we have an 0-4 guy here who scored 601 points, and then we got a 2-2 guy who's only scored 512. I mean, he's almost 100 points over him, but just the way the schedule broke down, and you can't control, what points get scored against you. You can only control how many points you score. But this is a weekly win-loss game. It doesn't go by points. But if you just want to know how your team's doing amongst the league, just look at total points scored, and use that. That's kind of like a power rankings thing. Is how many points have you scored? That's your power rankings. The record gets you into the playoffs, but the total points scored are kind of how's your team doing compared to the rest of the league. With that being said, let's go ahead and we'll wrap up the podcast here. Listen to us. You can follow us on Podbean. We're on iTunes. We usually do a live show on Sundays, but this week special circumstances, and last week, we were both on vacation at a lake house. The Wi-Fi cut out on us during a storm, so that's why we didn't get a podcast out to you guys last week. But this week, Matt's in Minnesota, and then next week, look forward to us being back on our live weekly Facebook episode there. So with that being said, guys, good luck to you this week.